Members of the Board of Trustees, Committee on Audit, if you could please respond present when you hear your name. Chairperson Kevin Kim.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Robert Mojica.
Here.
Trustee Berger. Okay. Trustee O'Donnell-Tormey.
Present.
Professor Ned Benton.
Present.
Professor John Verzani.
Present.
Faye Yanofsky, the student rep.
Present.
Great. And Anthony Cuevas, the student alternate. Okay. And Trustee Hunter? Nope. Okay. So you have a quorum, Kevin.
Wonderful. Thank you. We now have a quorum, so we can proceed.
Yes.
This public meeting of the okay, great. This public meeting of the Committee on Audit is now called to order. On March 7th, 2020, Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202 declaring a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. On March 13th, 2020, Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202.1, which included a suspension of law allowing the attendance of meetings telephonically or other similar service. Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, to the extent necessary to permit any public body to meet and take such actions authorized by the law without permitting in-person access to meetings and authorizing such meetings to be held remotely by conference call or similar service, provided that the public has the ability to view or listen to such proceeding and that such meetings are recorded and later transcribed. In accordance with the executive order, this board meeting is being held via teleconference with a live stream found at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. A copy of the calendar, which serves as our agenda, is also available online at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. Additional items may be added during the meeting. As a reminder, please mute your audio so we can ensure that everyone can be heard and everyone can also hear. I would like to now ask the Secretary to take a roll call attendance from members of the Chancellery. Gail?
Great. Members of the Chancellery, please respond present when you hear your name. Chancellor Matos Rodriguez. The General Counsel and Senior Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs, Derek Davis.
Present.
Excellent.
Present.
Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Operating Officer, Hector Batista.
Present.
Senior Vice Chancellor and CFO, Matt Sapienza.
Present.
Deputy CFO, Christina Chiappa.
Present.
University Executive Controller, Sarah Montero.
Present.
We also have several invited guests from Grant Thornton with us today. If you could also say present, Cosmo Senengerio.
Present.
Claire Eston.
Present.
Steve Giugardi.
Present.
Chris Atkinson.
Present.
And Marla Hummel.
Present.
That's all I got, Kevin.
And Gail, Henry Berger is present.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Henry.
Welcome, Henry. Thank you, Gail. Let's now turn to the items requiring a vote today. Given that all the board members are participating remotely, I will announce the resolutions and ask for members to respond only if you would like to abstain or oppose an item. Otherwise, your vote will be recorded as a yes vote. If you are voting no or abstaining, please state your name clearly and vote. Additionally, if you wish to second an item or have any questions, please state your name first for the record, and then let's also all try to avoid speaking over one another. We will now take up the following items for approval. Action item 1A is the approval of the minutes of the March 9th, 2020 meeting. I move for the approval of action item 1A. Do I have a second?
Berger seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing that no one has any issues, we will now vote. Again, please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Anyone abstaining or opposing? The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. I'd now like to address action item B, the policy calendar. Item B1 is the presentation and approval of the fiscal year 2020 external audit plan, which will be presented by our external audit firm, Grant Thornton LLP. I will now ask Senior Vice Chancellor Sapienza to please provide more detail first before turning the floor over to Cosmo Saginario, who's a partner at Grant Thornton. Matt?
Thanks so much, Chairman Kim, and hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. Thanks for attending this meeting today. As you all know, the university is required to provide audited financial statements by October 31st of every year. Grant Thornton is our external auditor. This will be their second year on the engagement. And as part of the audit committee's charter, the external audit firm comes to the board audit committee before the audit formally kicks off to present their external audit plan for the year, how they're going to approach the audit, what's going to be in the scope of the audit, what things they're going to be focusing on. And so that's what we're planning on doing today. Grant Thornton will take you through what their plan is. And then once they're finished and we go through Q&A, we'll vote on the plan as to whether it's approved for the upcoming audit cycle. We'll have a new partner for this year, which our colleagues at Grant Thornton will describe. And so with that, unless there's any questions or concerns, I'm happy to turn it over to our good colleagues at Grant Thornton and to Cosmo Saginario.
Thank you very much, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with you telephonically this afternoon to formally kick off the fiscal 2020 financial statement and compliance audit processes from an independent auditor standpoint. We do have a new member to our team. Her name is Claire Eston. I'm going to turn to her in just a second. You've heard a number of folks from Grant Thornton as the role was being called. Most of us are here for, in case questions come up, we're going to try and keep the actual presentation only to a couple of speakers. I think that will facilitate, the inability to see one another so that we don't kind of step all over each other. But again, we appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. And Claire, I'd like for you to kind of take over, and maybe you can start by announcing and giving your background to some of the members of CUNY's audit committee who you have not yet met with.
Great. Thank you, Cosmo. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Cosmo mentioned, my name is Claire Eston. I am an audit partner in our not-for-profit and higher education industry practice. I've been with Grant Thornton for about 13 years, and I've spent before that I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Boston, and I spent essentially 25 years working with higher education organizations, both in the public university side of things as well as private colleges and universities. I've spent time working with multi-campus operations and look forward to working with the team here at CUNY. I was very happy to be asked to be part of the team. I've had a chance to meet by phone and video Matt and Christina and Sarah, as well as some of the other members of the management team, and still many more people to meet, obviously, across the CUNY system, but we'll look forward to doing that as the audit year progresses. I also, in addition to the client-serving aspects of my job responsibilities, I also participate in the senior leadership group of our not-for-profit industry practice, which focuses on, the strategy of our firm and supporting our clients beyond just the audit services that we provide, which is an honor of mine. So with that said, I will, as Cosmo and Matt mentioned, the objective here is to discuss the plan for the fiscal 2020 audit, or audits, excuse me. And I'll go through at a very high level. I know the committee members had received the material in advance, and hopefully everybody has in front of them our presentation. It's referred to as FY20 CUNY TCWG, those charged with governance audit plan presentation. 27 pages. I'll be referring to the pagination on the PDF as we go through. So I will go through it at a high level with some assistance from my team, but please stop me at any point in time if you have questions, if you want us to either elaborate on something that maybe we didn't mention, or just need further clarification on any of the topics that we're covering. And really, you know, again, the objective is to get your input or feedback, and eventually, as Matt articulated, for you to approve our plan based on our risk assessment. We've had several meetings with management to talk about the audit process at this point. We've gotten some great input from management around, you know, what's new and different this year, and obviously we'll go into some of that in some detail, because things that have happened more recently over the last couple of months are obviously going to impact our audit approach. So we'll cover that in a little bit of detail. And this is really the culmination of that process of understanding how the events of the year will impact our risk assessment, and therefore where we'll focus our audit procedures. So I'll turn it over to Steve DiGuardi, Senior Manager, who's assisting me. We are on page 4 of 27. The title of the slide is Audit Timeline and Scope, and I'm just going to ask Steve to touch on a few points on that slide.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. So as it relates to the audit timeline and scope, a couple items that we just want to focus on. The timeline, as compared to last year, has shifted a little bit earlier. As you may recall from last year, the 2019 audit, during this time period, the spring months, we were still working, Grant Thornton and CUNY were working through some contracting matters. And as a result, the start of our audit didn't really kick off until later into the summer, into late July and into August. We are moving our timeline up. This is a more traditional timeline to what the university system is used to experiencing throughout the audit. And just starting in 2 weeks, on June 22nd, we'll be beginning our site visits, the work that we're doing at each of the colleges. What is different about this is I want to highlight the site visits will be conducted virtually this year, given the current status around COVID-19 and for the protection of employees on both sides. Leading up to the start of this field work, we've had multiple communications with the assistance of management to determine the readiness and the availability of information that will be coming from each of the colleges. And based on this feedback, we've determined that we will be able to conduct our procedures without significant issue. What we found over the course of the last 3 months auditing in this remote working fashion is that the audits can be conducted, information can be made available, but that requires a lot of upfront communication and determination about where the potential pitfalls might be, where the potential challenges are. And early on in our planning process, we've had those discussions with management, and those discussions will continue throughout the audit to help determine what those challenges are going to be and what the resolution is going to be. I also want to point out as well that the timeline, the final issuance, as stated earlier by Matt, the final report date with an October 31st target date has not changed. And we're working, Grant Thornton and the CUNY management team are working together to ensure that we do meet that timeline. And we've had experience over the past couple of months being able to meet that timeline with this remote working environment. I think with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Claire to take us through the remainder of the slides.
Thank you, Steve. So the next few slides go through topics such as materiality, the significant audit risks, and other areas of focus. And hopefully, again, this is all fairly similar to prior year. The things that I wanted to highlight particularly here are the sort of new and evolving risk assessments related to the impact of the pandemic on the second semester at CUNY. You know, the things around activities such as the student refund process and the accounting and related financial reporting for those activities and transactions will be something that, you know, we have been talking to management about and will continue to talk about and evaluate what type of audit procedures we might need to perform, obviously taking into consideration materiality. We also have been speaking with management about the receipt and expenditure of the two elements of the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds that came to CUNY through the CARES Act. And both, you know, there's the compliance aspect related to that funding, as well as again, the financial reporting and accounting for those funds, both of which will play into our risk assessment. The amount of expenditures that the CUNY system will have incurred by June 30th will be reported in the CFA, the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, or within the financial statements that are subject to Uniform Guidance Compliance Audit. So we will need to incorporate procedures to test that activity. I will say that, it's probably not a surprise, but exactly the procedures that we'll need to test are still being developed by the federal government, by the Department of Education, and have yet to be released. We are expecting they will be released over the summer or early fall. And as soon as they are, obviously, we'll work with management to determine what exactly we'll need to do for the CUNY expenditures. But that is something that we'll be able to update the audit committee when we provide our required communications in the fall. So those are some examples of the activities that are, I'll say, new and different, unusual, non-recurring, that are going to impact our audit approach. But again, the remainder of the slides that go through the significant risks and other areas of focus are generally the same as what they have been in the past. Switching to page 12 of 27, this just gives an overview of the Ite Audit aspect, where we will do a design review of, I believe the system is called CUNY First, or a PeopleSoft system, so we'll take a look at that. And then the final item that I wanted to mention, and again, I welcome any questions from the members of the committee, but if you look at page 15 of 27, this is a summary of the GASB pronouncements that would have been effective for this fiscal year, June 30, 2020, or periods soon after that. And this material was actually prepared back in, I believe, April. And at that time, these were the effective dates. So, for example, GASB 84 regarding fiduciary activities would have been effective for this year. However, the GASB just recently issued a statement, a pronouncement, which was GASB 95, that essentially gave a one-year deferral to all pronouncements that would have been effective in this fiscal year. They've essentially deferred them for 1 year to allow organizations more time, given, you know, other more pressing matters that needed to be attended to during the pandemic. So in speaking with management, they've agreed, or they've decided, we support the decision to defer the adoption of GASB 84 in GASB 90 to 2021. So this year, in the world of GASB adoptions, will actually be a quiet year for CUNY, which would be nice. I believe that's all that I wanted to cover. Again, if the committee has any specific questions about any of the audit risks that we've identified, anything about our plan, please feel free to ask.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. This is Faye speaking. You mentioned you were going to take a look at CUNY first. Could you talk about your plans for that?
Sure. So as part of our audit process, we get a general understanding of the IT environment, controls around reporting, privacy, security, how change management is controlled and conducted. And we have interviews with various members of management within the IT departments to, again, further understand what the controls and operating environment are as it relates to the key financial reporting system.
Thank you.
Of course. If there are no
Anyone
further
else?
questions, I'll ask, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Claire. Just one question. I think when Steve said there were going to be, obviously there definitely will be challenges, and then you're going to have to find solutions to those challenges. Doing the audit entirely virtually and off-site, could you just point out a couple of the biggest challenges that you expect to face?
Sure, I can start, and then I'll ask Steve and or Chris if they have any other observations based on their discussions with management. But I think generally, there's not a lot, luckily, Kevin. I think, you know, we've talked through situations where maybe there was something that we would test, and we would, in a normal environment, we would sit down across the table from someone, and they might show us certain documentation. We might sit side by side with someone looking at their computer screen to see perhaps walk through a journal entry approval process, and see that, you know, they're not able to do certain steps in the system that we would expect, and just sort of see that, you know, again, firsthand with our own eyes. Or maybe within the student financial aid audit, looking at student files per se, you know, if we can't get to campus and look at student files. But I believe we've been able to confirm that for the most part, and again, I'll ask Steve or Chris to correct me, but or elaborate, but I believe for the most part, we've confirmed that pretty much everything that we would have looked at, you know, I'll say side by side or paper copies, we've got some kind of a workaround, and it's not it's not the majority of the work where we've got to develop a workaround. It's sort of the minority of the work where we've had to be, I'll say, creative. Steve or Chris, is there anything you'd want to add, for examples?
Yes, absolutely. So this is Steve here. Claire, I just want to confirm that you're correct. In our conversations with Sarah, and who's had these conversations with the various campuses, the types of information that might be problematic to get is anything that's really kept in some sort of hard copy format and filed away that isn't really made into an electronic file. But that's very, very few pieces of documentation, and you see that in some of the student eligibility type and student financial aid forms. But again, it's a small number of it, and then also potentially in some of the payroll type records where there might be some hard copy only type items. However, in speaking with management, we are developing either a workaround or there is ways to have the information made available. It's just not as easy as someone just going into the file cabinet in their office and pulling it. It'll just require a little more coordination.
I think the last part that Steve said is the most important. It's just going to require some more coordination. And I'll say, luckily, we have the benefit of time on our side. It's, so I think with time on our side, we'll be fine with the coordination and execution in a remote environment.
And we're also
If there are
lucky
no
not to have to do a physical inventory, right? Because we've actually developed workarounds for that too, but it is a bit more challenging.
I appreciate all the questions. And again, if something comes up at a later date, feel free to reach out. But I guess I'll turn it back to Cosmo to wrap up our presentation.
Thanks so much, Claire. And to the members of the committee, Kevin, I just wanted to remind you that I will be retiring from Grant Thornton effective July 31st. Like all big, large firms, we have a mandatory retirement program that is age-driven, for partners, that is. And so I reached that golden age, if you would, back in December. So I'm finishing out the rest of our firm's fiscal year, which ends on July 31st. And so I wish I had a little bit more time to spend with you, but I feel very confident and good about the team that we've put together. I think Claire is a great addition to the team, and she will work with you hand in glove, much like personality-wise and in all other respects, much like I would have. Claire and I have worked together on a number of different things over the years, and I feel very strongly that she is a great addition to this team and will, in fact, be very good for the university and work very well with management and the committee as well. So with that, Chairman Kim, I turn it back over to you to see if there's any last comments or questions that we can address for you.
No, I'm okay. Anyone else on the committee have any other comments, questions? Okay. Well, hearing none, Cosmo, first of all, congratulations on your retirement. We're sad to see you go, and thank you for your service in this past year working with us. I know the management team has, sung high praises about your work, and so we are really sad to see you go. Claire, welcome aboard. Claire and I had a brief conversation before our call today, and I'm confident that Claire will fit right in and be working great with our team here as well. So welcome aboard there as well. Now I just would like to move for the approval of action item B1, the fiscal year 2020 external audit plan. Do I have a second?
Second, Jill O'Donnell Tormey.
Thank you, Jill. Any final discussion? Okay, so we will now vote. Again, please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Anyone abstaining or opposing? Okay, so the action item is unanimously approved. And with no more items on the agenda, I now move to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second, Berger.
The meeting is, and all four? Thank you very much. The meeting is now adjourned.